I'm a writer on Golden Girls, and then I write funny stuff, and then this tragic thing happens. I didn't feel equipped to deal with it, and
Welcome to Fails, Falls, and Fuck Ups, where we talk to amazing, successful people about the times that they were amazingly unsuccessful. And joining me today is a man whose pen is mightier than his sword collection because he's taken that pen and he has cut off slabs of cultural zeitgeist for you to enjoy. Stan Zimmerman. Stan, how you doing?
I'm just the biggest fuck up, right?
One of the biggest fuck ups.
Okay, thank you. I'm very proud to claim that. Yes.
So, Stan, let's get right into it. You are, let's be honest, you fall a little bit north of the success failure line. You have numerous successes under your belt. Under whatever belt you have in your house, there's so many successes. But I imagine that the path that led to that has been filled with potholes, with mistakes, failures, and just very frustrating situations. So if you wouldn't mind, bleed a little for my
Oh my
audience.
gosh. Well, first of all, I don't like to consider anything failures. So you may have to change the title of your show. So I look at them as learning experiences, all of them. Yes, there are a couple of regrets. I started writing them down because I'm actually working on my book now, called The Girls from Golden to Gilmore, and it's about all the wonderful women I've worked with and Rosanne. Um, but yes, in any career, you have ups and downs. And that's something at the beginning of my career I didn't know. I always felt like, oh, once you started getting work, you're just going to stay at the top and go show to show to show. But even after having such success with Golden Girls, being nominated for a Writers Guild Award, um, I we still I was driving to unemployment, and I hid my car around the corner because I was too embarrassed that it was a nice car, and I was collecting unemployment, even though I gave into the system. So you have to be uh, ready to weather the ups and downs of a career, and how do you reinvent yourself? And I think you know during this whole COVID time, everybody has had to pivot and figure that out. So I've kind of always been good about that, like when one thing stopped, I went to the other.
Take us back into your early career where the the learning curve was much steeper. How did you get started? And what would you say was the first real good learning experience?
Well, as I said, I think all of them are really good learning experiences. You have to take them in, and you may not know at the time what the lesson is, but accept it and strive for better and be open for better. I knew there were certain points when we were getting staffed on many shows, but I would drive to work and I'd go through the beautiful gates of Paramount. In the beginning when I would went through them, I was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe I'm going through them." And then on one TV show, I was like, "Oh, I'm going through these gates," and figuring out how to be happy in that environment. So at that point, that was a big. That was way after uh, Golden Girls, but um, my writing partner, who is very spiritual, just said, "Look, we made a contract to be on this show, and it's not our number one show, and it was having a lot of trouble finding its feet. And how can you make the best of it?" And so that kind of turned my way of thinking of it's a very realistic approach. You're here. How do you make yourself happy in that environment? And once I figured that out, it changed everything. And then we kind of came up with the philosophy of kind of sweeping fear off the table. I don't know if you've gotten to this in the show yet, but there's a spiritual way of looking at life you have only two choices, love or fear. So I chose love and sweeping fear off the table. And I was actually, I'll start name dropping now. This is
Please
the
do.
first one. The great Tony Award winning actress Swoosie Kurtz, who is doing an arc on my show, Rita Rocks, a sitcom I developed and ran on Lifetime.
With Nicole Sullivan, correct?
Nicole Sullivan, Tisha Campbell Martin, Ravi Ullman, was just a great cast. She invited me to be her plus one at an event honoring a friend and co-star of hers, Cherry Jones. And in the limo, she was like, "How do you do it every week?" And I'm like, "Me? Like you're a Tony Award winner." And she started explaining some of her process. And that's when I told her that we just believe that at the end of the week on a sitcom, we're going to have a really good script, or even just in writing any script. It goes through a lot of different ups and downs, and we look at it as kind of snarly hair making it smoother. And so just getting to the end of a script, writing the end, and then rewriting, 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 but trusting that it's going to be good at the end. So many writers get caught up in, oh my God, it's horrible. Or I'll have friends that have sell a pilot. And the minute they sell a pilot, I'll call them and or text to congratulate them, and they'll be like, "Yeah, but it's never gonna go." I'm like, "But why would you want to live in that space of negativity?" So I think for me, it's just living in a much more positive space. And if it doesn't go or something bad happens with it, you'll figure it out. You'll get up on your feet and again learn from that experience.
I think it's a great philosophy. And part of the reason for this show, in as much as it's branded fails, falls, and fuck ups, it's born out of the idea that I want to show people that the mistakes you encounter are stepping stones and they're learning blocks. Very, very few things, if anything, is zero sum. It's not you succeed or you fail. You may not get the result you wanted, but there's a
Yes,
lot
but
to it.
that's our own perception. So we are perceiving this is the path. And then when that path doesn't happen, then we feel like we're a failure or we made a mistake. And it's like, no, it's not a mistake. You're meant to go on this journey with it. You had to land here to learn this for the next phase. So I think using negative words creates more negativity, and it feeds into, like I tell my actors, if you why would you feed yourself like bad food? Then you're gonna feel bad. So you have to feel good. So you may have to change the name of your show. Sorry.
But it makes a really, really fun font.
Yes, and it's good, and we love alliteration. So but maybe you need like a subtitle, like lessons, lullabies, and laughter. I don't know.
I am curious, this philosophy, which I think is a great philosophy, how long did it take you in your career to develop it? Because again, I like the journey. I like seeing the journey, and it's not so much like I joked, bleed for me. What I'm hoping to show is a couple illustrative examples of I went through this and it taught me that.
Every single thing I go through, I went through that. It taught me that. So they're all lessons, every single one of them. I just don't want to get bogged down in the negativity of them. So even things, there was a show I was on, and I came on there, and I was young, and I would ask questions. Well, why are these two? It was a buddy comedy. Why are they friends? And the writers were like, "Just write the jokes. No one cares on a TV show. Just keep going." I'm like, "Well, no, because I came from an acting background." So I'm like, "Well, you're gonna have to tell the actors something. What is their motivation?" I think give it some depth to it will help. And the more specific you are, I think the better writing you can do. We lost a job actually on Full House, going on staff there because my previous shows said I had an attitude problem because I asked those questions. And so, maybe I don't know. I don't know any other way of doing it. That was their problem with having to answer questions, and they probably didn't like that someone young and had inexperience was questioning them because they had been on a bunch of TV shows.
And I've taken some of your classes, so I know with how much of a deft hand you have with actors and performers. You really, even though like you are a very good director. There's no even though about it. You are a very good director, and I really appreciated the couple times I've had an opportunity to watch you work, or indeed once be directed by you. I didn't know you came out of acting because I do no research. That's my skill.
Yes, what is wrong with you? So I started in acting,
Emotional issues.
but that's what it is. Okay. Actually, that's why I got into the business. I was started acting. Well, I was making plays in my basement, and I would act in them and direct them, and kind of we didn't really write them. It was more improv that, and then just repetition. Um, and then I went to acting school at age 7.5, and I just loved acting, and it was like everything I was going to do. I went to a summer stock in New Hampshire, and then there they said, if you really are serious about acting, you had to go to New York and go to NYU. And luckily, I auditioned and got in, and that's where I met my writing partner. So I was acting during the day and then writing sitcoms at night with him. and I realized I was too nervous going to auditions. Like literally, my face would jiggle from nerves. I was like, well, maybe this isn't for me. I mean, I was super young and I wasn't comfortable in my own skin. Still working on it. And
We all are.
yeah, I mean, that's a process. And but when I was writing with my writing partner, I just felt alive. And so I just kind of put acting to the side and really focused on writing, and that kind of took off. But then while we were doing Gilmore Girls, I got a call from Sean Hayes' agent, and I thought he was going to pitch me an actor for Gilmore Girls, and he's like, "No, I want you." And I love reality, so I was like, "Oh my god, this is fantastic." And I just had the best time, and it started giving me more confidence, which led to directing and finding the confidence to write on my own and direct on my own, and not always with a writing partner. Being on camera gave me that sense of confidence, and then recently I wrote a play using real suicide notes, and it was kind of it's called Right Before I Go, and it was
Right.
using like Kurt Cobain and war veteran and LGBTQ and kids that were bullied. Their real suicide notes.
It's a very important piece of work. It is.
Thank you. So it was really just four actors on stools and read on music stands, so it could be done like vagina monologues with a day's rehearsal to raise money and awareness and benefits. And then I had a Broadway director, Michael Wilson, involved, and he said, "Is there any way like you could tell your story with my a very close friend of mine, Kevin, died by suicide, and that was the impetus for me to create this piece." He said, "When you tell that story, you're so funny and you bring humanity into it." And I'm like, oh, I had never written alone. It was for that piece, it felt like more like I was a curator. And I was like, well, I guess I could create a narrator character, but it's not me, it's a narrator. And every subsequent reading, everyone said, don't just say you're a writer, say you're a comedy writer. And then it's like, well, say you wrote for sitcoms, like be specific. And here I could give those lessons to other people, but I wasn't taking it myself. I finally just was like, I'm a writer on Golden Girls, and then, I write funny stuff, and then this tragic thing happens. I didn't feel equipped to deal with it, and what I didn't know anything about suicide, and I went to the computer and Googled it, and that's how all the notes started coming up with the other actors. So we were doing it in Orlando, I think about 6, 7 years ago on Suicide Prevention Day, and the actor playing me, I just said, get somebody old and funny, and he dropped out because he got a job, and my director said, you're in.
You're the old funny
Yeah, I'm
guy.
the old funny guy. Get in there. And we went to do the table read, and I got to my friend's name, and I couldn't say it. It got stuck right here. And then my glasses
It's a
started,
lot of pain to bring out.
yeah, started filling with tears. And all the actors are holding my hand. It's okay. It's okay. And so now I've been acting in the play, going back to acting, playing a version of me with high school students, college students. I did it at a high school in Claremont, California, with students, faculty, and school board members. I did a virtual version with Vanessa Williams, Blair Underwood, Hari Neff, and Wilson Cruz. I'm about to go do it in Alabama. So suddenly I'm got thrown back into acting, not by choice, but and I'm really loving it because I get to connect in all these different, very different communities. So I was back in October in my hometown of Detroit, and we did it with Hill Harper from The Good Doctor and some students at a high school in downtown Detroit, and that was very cool and scary, and but cathartic in some ways. But it's so beneficial to raise the discussion, and that's what's so important.
It is really important because up until even now, mental illness, the need to not just mental illness, but depression, we're so conditioned. Certainly, I've been conditioned to hold everything in.
Well, especially as men, we are.
Yes, we feel nothing. We are supposed to feel nothing. Just
That's why I enjoy writing for women, because women can talk about their feelings. When people say, "Why do you write
yeah,
so much about girls and women?" It's because guys, we were like, "No, yes, blah, blah," And for with women, it's much more verbal, and it's more exciting as a writer to be eloquent in that way.
But there are cracks in the dam now. There is a movement towards finally coming to the realization that no, we are as feeling. There's from an emotional standpoint, there's no man woman divide or the whole wherever you are on that spectrum. And we all are feeling creatures and we all have to deal with things like depression, disappointment, too much pressure, and the whole gambit of things.
Fails, falls, and fuck ups.
Exactly.
There you go.
I agree with you where when you grind on these negative words, my take on it is a little bit different. I like to point my finger at things and laugh at them and remove the power from them.
Destigmatize them.
Yes. Thank you for the words. That's why you're the
There
writer.
you go. I don't know.
And I'm the guy who occasionally uses your trash can.
Oh, you're the one. Um, yes. So I think it's important to have the discussions, but I'm sure you saw recently there was a university that was supposed to be doing the play at about a month ago, and the head of their mental health department said they didn't think they should be doing a play about suicide because it would encourage suicide, which is the exact opposite of
I
where the mental health field is at now. And the play is only an hour, and then I add on a half hour for every show of a talk back with the local mental health professional. So it's very important to talk about it. Did anything trigger you, or and those talkbacks for me is the most important part of the play, and it is so beautiful. And the people, because in the play I'm very open about everything, so I think it encourages people to share their experiences.
also your play might be the first. There might be somebody in that audience who are having these thoughts and they don't know how to articulate them and they don't know how to bring them out. And your play may very well be the first avenue that that person experiences that enables them to form their thoughts and it gives them an avenue to express them in a way that can be beneficial to them as opposed to sitting there and grinding on them. I have to admit, when I saw that your play got canceled because of that, I was saddened, of course. One, I'm serious about it. It is one of the most important things I think you've done. You've done a lot of great work, but this is an important thing that I feel you're doing, and this is a good service to a lot of people, and you are to be commended for that. It made me angry.
The cancellation of it made me push further, and it just got picked up by a community theater, the first community theater to do this play. They'll be doing it in June in Monroe, Wisconsin. So there were some doors closed and then other doors open,
Mhm.
but I felt it actually is a part of a bigger discussion of, the Florida laws about, you can't talk about anything LGBTQ. You can't talk about race. I mean, we're in this culture now where you can't talk about actual things that have happened or how you feel are happening. So that's going to lead more kids to suicide, more kids writing notes, which was exact opposite of what I want to do.
It is weird in the land of the free, the home of the brave, how frightened a lot of people are to confront actual facts.
And it can be messy, but I always have been pushing and leaning into we need to have more of these messy discussions. And if we just are on our own corners,
Mm,
then we will never get in there and have it. Like the whole thing with the Whoopi Goldberg situation.
yeah.
And it was like, she could consider that a fail or a fuck up. And I'm like, no, look what the discussion you've provoked. Race in Judaism is such an interesting topic, and so many people have very different views of it. I'm like, her show is called The View. Her point of view is from her point of view. I'm not in her shoes. I don't know how she feels, but I would love to talk and hear why she does think that, and maybe we can explain. No, well, there was the Aryan race was considered a race.
Yeah.
So
It was written into Mein Kampf.
think of it that way. You may not think of she may think of race as just color, but maybe now through this whole experience, she'll see, oh, there's all these other sides. And that's what I think is important. Have the discussion. But I was kind of shocked. Some people on Facebook, no, she needs to be punished. I'm like, punished? No, or silenced. She needs to be in the town square having the conversations with everybody.
It is definitely teachable moments, and we have to lean into them as opposed to swatting them down, even if we disagree with the point being brought up.
And it's not like there's some issues, like with LGBTQ rights. To me, there's no two sides to that issue. Everybody has the right to be who they are,
Yes.
as long as their viewpoints aren't causing like, violence or harm. I think it's important to elevate that discussion.
On the one hand, it has gotten almost to some degree very frightening with the fractionalization of the country, with the polarization. On the other hands,
Yeah.
on the other hand, thank you, all five of them. On the other hand, we've seemed to have come so far just from the 80s. As a child growing up, there was nothing where I came from, which was Philadelphia. There was nothing worse that you could call another boy than
You can say it. Fag. Yes.
you can say it, I can't.
Okay. Okay. Yes.
If we lived in what I would consider the perfect world, things like religion, color, sexuality would be about as important and relevant to the daily conversation as hair color or tastes in food, just another aspect of life.
Well, important aspects of life,
Important,
there's the
yes.
other side. People go, well, like you should be colorblind. Well, no, I mean that's part of your history and how you walk in the world.
Yes.
As so is my Judaism. Even though I don't practice it, it's still a part of me every moment that I get up. Every time I use my hands like this.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I do the same thing. No, I didn't mean that
No, I know.
it shouldn't be a thing. Everything's a thing. But it's like I culturally relate to most people in the exact same way I culturally relate to everybody else. There are pieces of my culture that is totally different than their culture. That doesn't matter. That just gives you an experience to experience something new, learn something new. What I meant is that in the ideal world, somebody's sexuality wouldn't be something that they are judged on. Somebody's color wouldn't be something that they are judged on. We don't live in that world. And I don't know that that world's even attainable because of the history of the one we actually live in. So there is a cultural experience to being black that I will have never experienced. And I understand that there's a cultural experience to what I have that other people haven't experienced.
But how can we experience it?
Yeah.
So to me, there's this feeling now like you can only write what you are. Like, so that means I could never have written Golden Girls because I am not an older woman.
Of course not.
But to me, I want to use these moments of stepping into those shoes, like I did when I directed my production of Diary of Anne Frank by casting
Hmm.
Latinx actors. That was my artistic concept. Was these actors were putting their feet in the shoes of those people. How do they feel like? How do they feel different? That the more we can do that, I think. So that's why I
Yes.
cherish writing other kinds of people that aren't like me, because that's a way for me to go, oh, I didn't, or if I'm ever get in trouble, like how do I react in a situation? I was like, well, if I was in their shoes, how would I feel? And I've thought that way for a long, long, long time. So it's a matter of being sensitive. And now,
Empathy.
empathy, which, obviously the last administration, that was a negative word. And then there's a big group of people that are trying to make woke a bad thing. To me, being sensitive and empathetic is a good thing, and it's turned on its side. Oh, you're too empathetic. You're too sympathetic. And like, how can you be too sympathetic? I just, I feel for other people. That's just my nature.
And it comes out in your work. I was going to mention The Diary of Anne Frank because that is the last play of yours that I've seen in person, and it devastated me. It absolutely because I also come from a Jewish lineage. The whole idea of having, especially at that moment where ICE was running rampant, it added such layers of commentary without saying an additional thing on this play, and you did not alter the play at all.
I wasn't allowed to change the words, even though Drudge and Breitbart printed that I changed the script and made the Nazis ICE agents, which is how we got death threats. We had to take the poster down from the marquee at the theater. We had to have a drill in case anything happened during the middle of the play. We didn't know.
I remember.
Luckily, people finally got to see it and they go like, "Oh, I get it. Like this is no, you're celebrating and teaching her life through a different perspective." And that was what was so cool about it. And I hope to, we can bring the play back if schools start having events like this. But when we did school groups coming to the shows, because I found out they don't teach the Diary of Anne Frank in schools anymore in California. It's not required reading. So that's why, when they do surveys, a lot of kids don't know who Anne Frank was.
We're getting further and further away from remembrances of
Yes.
the Holocaust.
So we had, whenever we had school groups come, we had a survivor come speak for a talk back. And that was so cool because those kids treated them like rock stars and they loved it. So they would contact me and go, when's the next one? And, unfortunately, we lost two of the survivors, since doing the play 2 years ago. So that's, that is becoming a memory. And that's why we have to find new ways to do the play. I think, how can we touch other people?
Yes.
And for kids to see other kids going through this, they were like, I think it's much different now because we've kind of been locked away in our homes. So suddenly they can connect more to, oh my God, they understand what that's like. Of course, they didn't have to like be quiet during the day. It's a little different.
Slightly, but again, that as I said, not only it's the last time I've been in a theater seeing the play, the most touch I've ever been by a play. Just like when I say devastated, I had to collect myself before leaving the seat to say hello to the actors because I didn't want to bawl in front of them.
Why? What made you the starkness of it?
I,
For me, I loved adding like humor and that you were laughing and you almost forget what's going to happen to them. That's what the people that talk to me about the play is like, you see like, oh my God, all these like weird people trapped in an
it's
apartment.
so hopeful till the end.
Yes.
It's
And that's
hopeful
how
till
I
the end.
directed them.
And then that last moment where the father, and I can't remember who the actor's name was who played it, when the father came onto the stage and just with such passionate, desperate despair talks about
The death of each one.
the death of these people.
So that's not
Even now, I want you to realize, even now, like I am here and I'm on the verge of crying because it was such
well, it was
it was the most powerful moment I've experienced in a theater. You did that to me. God damn you.
with nothing but a black box theater, a white
Mhm.
long table that I envisioned as the trains. So I had all the characters huddling under the train. And then that door burst open. Remember, it was a completely black set, and this light came through.
Mhm.
No Nazis in the play. There's supposed to be all these Nazis coming in. It was through the light that we saw that. And he stands up, and then as he mentions each name of the character, stood up and walked towards the light in silence. And that was just something I created in my brain. It's not at all written that way in the script.
Emotionally devastating to me. It was a stunning way of presenting that, from my opinion.
To me, it's like, when you're okay, you have $1.50 to make the show. How do you do it?
Right.
And I remember the beginning of it is you come in and you just see mounds of black. And from the beginning of the play, those actors I've had underneath black blankets for 20 minutes while you're sitting in the theater. Nobody has ever said, oh, I saw them under there. So they were hiding. And then I started to play it. If you remember, they were all in hoodies, gray hoodies, because
Mhm.
that's what we gave people when ICE took them away. We took their clothes. So I started everybody in gray and black, and then they unzipped it, and you started seeing a T-shirt with a color. And then in Act Two, that whatever their color was, they were in period clothes of that color, and it was a rainbow of. So like, to me, that's a little bit of my Wizard of Oz damage of it going from black and white to color. I'm like, well, how do I do that on a stage? And they also were reading the scripts, if you remember that. And then these families were stuck hiding, and this is how they entertained themselves, by reading the script. And then the scripts, they folded them, then they slowly disappeared, and you never saw them disappear. And suddenly they're walking around the stage just doing the lines. And so that was,
Yeah, even when they had the scripts, you lost track of the fact that they had scripts. It started off very much like, here's this workshopping kind of black box
yeah. And
production
some people were
thing.
like,
And
I paid money to see people read a script. And then they were like, oh, holy fuck, what's happening here? Yeah, so that was one of the I think that I felt like I was almost painting with imagery and colors and sounds. And again, they were reading bombs, and then suddenly I added, a bomb coming in, and then we had marching of the Nazis outside. So it was adding sounds and lights and color throughout the piece.
And as you said, a lot of these decisions, or some of them at the very least, was born out of the fact that there just wasn't resources to pay for things. And so a lot of really interesting creative things came out of a lack of
Your friend
resources.
Tracy, she was selling her white table. She's like, "You want it? $10, come get it." And that became our set. So one little old table and a couple of chairs, and you have a play. And that's why I tell people, if you're failing or feeling like a fuck up, buy a $10 table, make a play. You can make your own content. Again, there's so many times in this business where like you're met with no's. No this, no that, you can't do that, or I've been told, be quiet. You can't do something like that, or we'll pitch something. We had a big deal at 20th Century Fox, and the executive said it's never been done. And I left there going, that's not a reason not to do it because it's never been done. That's the reason probably why you should do it. Um, so to me, it's just figuring out ways around it. Always like ways around, people telling you why you can't do it. And that's what keeps me going and keeps me excited about waking up every day and creating content.
Dare I ask, what is your most creative left turn you ever took? Just where out of this isn't working, so I know we're going to do this.
I don't think we ever were like that, like, oh, let's pivot how to do it. It just is something, this excites me. Or, luckily I've been in the business long enough where we've seen sitcoms, they're over, they're done. And so then naturally, all of a sudden, the Brady Bunch came into our life. And all of a sudden, we were doing movies. And then, you know, uh, musicals came in that we just happened to be next door to Zayden and Marin, who were doing the Annie movie. And they were saying to us, you have to help us rewrite the script. And we're like, Annie? Like, why would you rewrite Annie? Just, it is what it is. And we accepted the job, and thank God we did. And suddenly that opened up whole avenues for us of writing musicals. And that was exciting. And so it's kind of cool to, push yourself in different areas. But there's certain ones where I just don't feel like I'm not a sci-fi person. So that's not something I would gravitate towards. But who knows?
I'm sure you would do fine at it because you do fine at just about everything you do. Or at the very least, it'll be a spectacular failure,
No,
which
it will
again,
not
for
be a failure.
no, no,
It
no,
will
will not
not
be
be
a
a
failure. It'll
failure.
be a
It will
learning
be a big
experience.
learning. Yes, yes.
And then you'll just take something else out of it. I want you to give advice to those. I mean, you do this all the time, but do it here. Give advice to somebody just starting out, be it acting, writing, or just, it doesn't even matter what their dream is. They've got a dream. Give them something to help them on their dreams, Dan.
Keep dreaming. When you're asleep, dream about it. When you're in bed and that, like, I don't want to get out of bed, keep dreaming it. That's what I did when I was a kid in high school. I remember just sitting in my bed and I thought, I'm not a writer, but I have these ideas. If I could find somebody that I could create with, I didn't know the idea of a writing partner. So I was dreaming of that while I was awake, I guess. And I created that. So I keep doing that. I keep putting, literally, ask the universe. I know it's very spiritual and woo woo, but ask the world what you want. And it comes back. I just had this happen literally 2 days ago. I asked the world, I needed this for my suicide note play. 24 hours later, it appeared. I'm like, wow, that was fast. So don't be afraid to put it out there, but also don't be afraid that when it comes back at you to grab it. Sometimes people say, oh my God, it's here. Like, now what do I do? Or I'm not good enough and I'll mess it up or I'll fuck it up. No, just get in there and do it. Just get in there and do it and keep going at it.
Great. Thank you so much for that. So let's end on you shamelessly plugging yourself. What would you like my listeners and viewers to find of yours, to find you?
Follow me. I love my Instagram, Zimmerman Stan. I love telling the story of my ups and downs. And, I had great grief last year and I talked about that. It's not all, you know, hanging out with celebrities, or writing this great TV show. There's things you have to, pick yourself up, or you have to stay in bed another day and kind of, lick the wounds and then pick yourself up. That's your question. Not at all. Not at all. Um,
Not in the least, but that's fine.
but just keep laughing and find the joy. I mean, it's just, especially in what we do, like it's fun. It's really fun, and surround yourself with people that see the way you do and laugh like that. And if there are people that are negative, like that's kind of the world telling you, okay, that's not where you need to be, because there's enough like-minded people that can celebrate you. There's so many people, especially like in this town, that are trying to tear down other people. I think other people are successful. Like, how exciting to watch them, um, shine. And I love that one. That's why I love teaching so much. When I see, actors that, one actor that just did my last play, have a good one. He dreamed of being on a sitcom, never was on a sitcom. And he did my little 50-seat theater play. And I had the casting director from the Mayim Bialik show call me Catcom. The show closed on a Sunday. He auditioned on Tuesday. The next week, he was in his first sitcom. So say yes and do it, even if you don't see where the road's going to lead. You just never know.
And there's a lot of truth to be said about who you surround you with. I believe the saying is you are a conglomeration of the 5 people you hang out with all the time. So you want to choose those people correctly.
There you go. See, look what we've done for you already.
I feel lighter in spirit already, Stan.
Well, thank you for inviting me, and best of luck with this project.
Well, I thank you. I am hopeful. I am hopeful here. Maybe here too. We'll see where it goes. Stan, thank you for being a friend. Oh, he can turn the world on with his smile. Was there a question that I really should have asked Stan, but I simply didn't? If so, let me know in the comments. And again, follow me on all the socials that you can. I'd appreciate it. Next week, I'm joined by SiriusXM host, as well as the star of the show, Skin Deep with Sharon Morton. Sharon Morton.
I really just thought it was the end for me, like the end of my life. I didn't think I was going to make it. So much so that I read my will to my adult children.